Hello, welcome back, or welcome if you are new here. My name is Megan, and I have decided to read all of Jane Austen's works this summer. All of her novels, I should say, this summer. This is the third video in the series, and in this video I'm going to read Mansfield Park. Oh my goodness. I will link the other two videos below if you want to see me read Pride and Prejudice or Sense and Sensibility. But today we are going to be talking about Mansfield Park. I'm really excited. I know a little bit about this one. I went into Sense and Sensibility completely blind, but this one I actually know who the main couple is. I don't actually know the arc of the story or how they get to be together, but I do know that this is the one where the main character, by the way, there's going to be spoilers, but what was I saying? Oh, this is the one where the main character ends up with her first cousin. So Fanny ends up with Edmund. So I don't know. We'll see. It's funny because I feel like I've read two of them back to back that have problematic elements. I mean, they all have problematic elements because of the time period that they were set in. With Sense and Sensibility, I was forced to kind of root for a 17-year-old and a 35-year-old, and in this one it will be first cousins. So, you know, we're just gonna file that in the back of the brain where you acknowledge that it is severely problematic, but you are rooting for the main character regardless. Other things that I know about this that I actually read in the introduction. So far I just read my first pages. I read the introduction and then read up till chapter 3. So I'm not going to discuss too much in detail, but other things that I've learned about this and what to expect from this book is that this book is controversial in the sense that I feel like Jane Austen switches up her writing and her themes a little bit. And I'm just getting that from the introduction. I don't actually know if that's true or if that's a widely held belief. But the introduction does talk about it a little bit, and so I'm prepared for not a very different book, but I'm prepared for a different style of book. The fact that this book was set at the turning of an age, so we are going from the very beginning of the 1800s. So we're going from the turn of the 18th century into a more Victorian age, which really saw a shift in morals in England in a pretty intense way. People became more rigid, and I think we all know a little bit of like the bare bones of what the Victorian age was like. You know, it was very prim and proper. And so I think that this book will reflect that shift of tone within society, which I think is actually interesting because I think that we are all the product of the age that we live in. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know how I feel about what to expect, but I think that's the best way to go into a book. And in the meantime, get very comfy and let's talk a little bit about Jane Austen and see what happens. I'm so curious if I'm going to end up hating or loving this book or what the situation is going to be. So I am about to go and read my Jane Austen pages, but I felt the need to update on the tragedy that has occurred. I don't know if you can see it. I spilled my water on it last night and it got super warped. I don't know if you've ever done that before, but it is quite tragic, but I'm still gonna read it. I did actually find a Mansfield Park on my bookshelf in Tom's office, and I also found Persuasion, so I did have some copies of some Jane Austen books already, but I'm still gonna stick with this one because I started annotating it anyway, and it's only like the last 60 or so pages that are destroyed, but oh well. understand what is happening. I feel like you're crooked, but when I check the footage, it looks fine, so I don't know. I am a little bit frazzled because we are leaving for camping today, but I wanted to quickly sit down and film a little bit of an update. Okay. I don't know how I feel about this book. I feel like I knew going in it was going to be different. It just feels so different than any other of the two Jane Austen books that I've read, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It's just a completely different tone. And that's how I feel. Like, I just feel like it's a completely different tone, and I don't think I'm loving it. I'm gonna put that out there. I don't think I am enjoying it as much as the other two. The tone is not as playful. The characters are not as also playful. I feel like there is a lightness to Sense and Sensibility and Pride and Prejudice that just isn't present here. I honestly couldn't really even summarize what is happening. I mean, we are following Fanny, who is, we meet her when she's a young girl and she's adopted. She's not adopted, but she's sent to live with a new family and is incredibly shy and doesn't open up well to people and is quite sad and pitiful when we meet her. And then her cousin Edmund is very kind to her and she kind of breaks out of her shell a little bit. I think what's hard about it is that nothing really is happening. It's just things are happening to Fanny. And like, not even exciting things. It's just people are discussing Fanny. People are deciding that Fanny should ride horses and then are ignoring her when it's time to ride horses. I don't know. It's just a little bland. Right now, I think the highlight for me is the relationship between Fanny and Edmund. Again, they're first cousins, so like, I'm not saying relationship as in I want it to be a romantic relationship, even though I do know, spoiler alert, that they do end up together. They get married in the end. It's more just like he is her anchor into coming out of her shell. I don't think that metaphor made sense, but he's basically the reason why she opens up to people. And she's clearly very comfortable around him, and there is clearly a relationship between the two of them. If they weren't first cousins, I would be reading it as all of the things in a relationship that are good, you know. He is mindful of her feelings. He makes sure that other people treat her well. He's very kind to her and she feels very comfortable around him, and, you know, is a little bit hurt when he ignores her for other women, and all these things that are like, yeah, obviously you two should get together, but then again, you're thinking the entire time you're first cousins. But I just don't know if I love it. Like, for instance, there's a scene that is, I think, like almost 2 pages long where people are just discussing Fanny. So let's talk very briefly about how I feel about Fanny, because it is equally as complicated about how I feel about this book. I don't even know if I've mentioned how far I've gotten. I'm only on chapter 8. I don't know. Again, I think my feelings about Fanny are just as complicated as they are about this book, because once again, she's very different than the other heroines from Sense and Sensibility and Pride and Prejudice. She does not speak her mind. She is very shy, and a lot of things are just happening to her and around her, and she doesn't really seem to have the confidence to say anything. So Fanny goes and stays with a Mrs. Norris, and Mrs. Norris is quite cruel. And there's a scene where they are discussing for nearly 2 full pages whether or not Fanny should go out with a headache and garden for Mrs. Norris. And Mrs. Norris is saying that, you know, she should, and Edmund is saying she should absolutely not. And it's just this weird moment where I was like 2 pages in and I'm like, are they just like talking about Fanny while she's sitting there? Because like she's sitting there and for like 2 full pages they're like, well, she shouldn't do that. And then the other guy's like, well, she should. I don't think that I'm doing this book service, but I'm just really not enjoying it. And so when I'm not enjoying it and the language is as thick as Jane Austen's language is to me personally, I'm like I'm not like into, I'm not getting what's going on. There's also just like a lot of like discussion. Like there's just a lot of discussion. And I know that that is, and by that I mean like there's just a lot of people talking to one another about things that don't really seem to be advancing the plot. I mean, honestly, I'm on chapter 9. Oh yeah, no, I'm on chapter 9, and the only thing that has really happened is Fanny has been moved around from family to family, and Edmund and Fanny have come to know a Miss Crawford, and Edmund has started to develop feelings for Miss Crawford. The big thing that has happened is they all were going to go horseback riding, and Fanny was really looking forward to it. And again, I don't know if I'm like missing a rule of the time, but like Fanny wasn't, she was like left behind even though she had a horse. I feel like maybe she needed someone to help guide her. I have no idea why she was left behind, but she was left behind and she was feeling very sad about it. And Miss Crawford and Edmund have a great time, and again they're starting to develop a little bit of feelings for one another. They come back and Miss Crawford puts on like a big to-do about apologizing to Fanny, but then she says selfishness must always be forgiven, you know, because there's no hope of a cure. So basically she's like, this is the way I am and I'm not going to change, so maybe you should just forgive me. And you know, I feel like we know nowadays when someone refuses to change when they're harming other people, they're usually a trash human. Not getting good vibes from Miss Crawford. Edmund seems to love her. It's gonna be a hard read. It's gonna be a very hard read. I know it. I would actually probably like this book significantly better if Edmund and Fanny weren't first cousins, because at least you would have the development of that romance to root for. But again, in my head, I'm like, I will be reading this hopefully on my camping trip, and we will get a better chunk through it, and you know, maybe I'll just forget that they're first cousins and like that. So that's my little update. I'm sorry that it is not as positive as I want it to be. I mean, I'm not that sorry. This is the whole point of this, is to read Austen and be able to have an opinion on it. Okay, I'm gonna go camping. I'm so excited to go camping. Yeah. I hope this doesn't ruin my trip. feel like this is a Coke commercial. I very rarely drink Coke, but my walk home is directly in the sun. The sun is bearing down on me the entire time. And we've had our water shut off all day because of some emergency in the city. So we're drinking some Coke. I actually rarely finish my cans of Coke. Tom usually finishes them for me because I just like, it gets too sweet. But I love that, like, I love the first like 5 sips of Coke. Now you may be wondering why I am speaking about Coke instead of this. This book was so painful. Look, I don't want to be over dramatic about it, but I really did not like this book. I just did not like it from beginning to end. I really, really struggled, and I think the only reason why I finished it was because I downloaded the audiobook. And I was saying earlier this morning before I left for work that I was hoping that the story would pick up, and it kind of did. I will say that things started to happen because, to be honest, the first chunk of this book, I didn't even know how to explain what was going on. It was incredibly character-driven drama, and I'm trying not to use the word stupid drama, but like it felt like stupid drama. A large portion of the first part of the book was about a play, which I'm sure if I looked up the play and it gave me more of historical context, maybe I would feel a little bit more for the moments where they're discussing the play and whether or not it's appropriate that certain people are putting on this play. And my God, there was like, yeah, I don't even think they want me to talk about it. There was a lot of chapters about this play. Okay, so let me summarize very briefly what happens, because frankly, I don't really want to talk about it for that long. Fanny is eventually proposed to by a man that she does not like. She doesn't not love him. She doesn't even like him. He is a womanizer. He has proven himself to be a womanizer, and everybody around Fanny is trying to convince her to do it. And so the book for me really felt like a character study of Fanny. And I was thinking about it on the walk home as I was finishing the book. And I think I would like Fanny, and I would like this book if it were a completely different book, but there was still Fanny. And I don't know if that makes sense, but I don't hate her as a character. I actually quite like her, and I think that she isn't a traditional Austen heroine by any stretch, but she is strong, and you know, the book really is about her journey to self-assuredness. I say that with a question mark because I don't actually think that the journey is complete. There's a lot of problems that I have with the ending. It's just not satisfactory, frankly. And I like her, is the fundamental point. I do really like her, but I just think that everyone else around her sucks. I like the idea of Fanny as a main character. I think, again, she felt probably the most sympathetic. And moving on to the romance part of it, you know, putting aside the fact that Edmund is her first cousin, it is very clear all throughout the book that she is in love with him, deeply in love with him. You know, she starts getting jealous when he starts falling for another woman and starts getting feelings for her. And that romance, the romance between Edmund and Miss Crawford, is also very interesting, and there's, you know, a little bit of drama there, but it was just weird. This is a book that I would appreciate it if I had studied it. If I had been forced to take this in university and was forced to write an essay on it and to pick a theme, like an individual theme, I think I would really like this overall book. However, that's not what I'm doing here. I'm reading these for fun, and I just didn't like it. I did not love this book. I also feel like, going back to the romance, a lot of my thoughts are very disjointed right now, and I apologize for that. But going back briefly to the romance between Fanny and Edmund, I also just feel like Edmund doesn't really doesn't like her, but doesn't love Fanny. And so it just felt very weird. I feel like the message was odd. What I was seeing was a man who sees a woman as a younger sister, who tries to teach her the right way to act in a society, and who stands up for her and protects her. He shaped her into a woman that he liked, and then she loved him all along. I don't know. It just felt very weird. I'm being very vague about it because frankly, I don't think I could talk about this book with any kind of authority because I was listening to it on 2 times the speed and I was really just like dipping in and out of the story. I think that this book could have been half the size. I think that the beginning really, really lost me, and I was really frustrated with it, that by the time things started happening for our characters, I really didn't care, and I really didn't want to root for any of them. That being said, I'd probably give this like a 2 out of 5, and that's like a respect thing, because obviously I respect Jane Austen, and I do love her other works that I've read, and I am going to continue on with this. You know, we're just kind of like at the halfway point in the marathon, and I'm really tired, and I tripped, and I'm going to get back up, and I'm going to keep going. But yeah, overall, not the best of the works that I've read so far. Very much not the best. And that's all I'm going to say about this, because I could rant about it, but I just want to move on, and so I'm going to. I actually, again, am finished ahead of schedule. These books are very, very readable, at the very least, except for this one. Yeah, except for this one. So we've got 3 more left in this journey. We've got Northanger Abbey, Persuasion, and Emma, and I still think I am gonna read Emma last because I just got a good feeling about it. I feel like I'm gonna love it. I honestly have no context for that, and I know nothing else about any of these. I think I am gonna go with Northanger Abbey. I also think that this has vaguely gothic elements, and I ride or die for gothic elements. I love gothic literature, so I think I'm gonna go with this one. I feel really good about it. I still feel really good about this journey. Like I said, we're just halfway through the marathon and I've tripped, but I'm gonna get back up, and ultimately I'm sure one of these books will redeem the garbage fire that was Mansfield Park. I deeply apologize if that is your favorite Jane Austen book, because I really didn't like it. Thank you so very much for watching. I am so happy that I caught a little bit of camping on this, and I'm really, really enjoying this journey. It's really fun. It's frankly really fun, even though I was hating that book. So, onward. Until next time.